There are many data engineering projects available on YouTube, but nobody is actually talking about how data engineering projects work in a real life. They don't talk about how real-time data pipelines are built, how we face the problem, or how we face the situations in real project. So this is the exact problem that I am going to solve if you want to become a data engineer in 2025. This is going to be the series of 10 data engineering projects that people have actually worked in their own companies. In this series, we will talk about real-time data pipelines, project architecture, tools and technologies used, source systems, targets, then data details, schema, problem they actually face while working in the project, then all the scenario-based interview questions that may get asked around project. So trust me, each episode is going to be a very high quality discussion of 40 to 50 minutes. So hey everyone, my name is Shoma Wadekar. I am a data engineer and a content creator. I will keep uploading such videos that will help you crack the companies we want. And in return, all I'm asking is to hit the subscribe button. You can also join the community of around 34,000 data engineers on my WhatsApp channel. So without wasting any further time, let's start the interview. Before we move forward, let me share something very exciting, and especially if you're looking to start your career into data science. Recently, I came across this one platform which is worth checking out, and that is Odin School. Their data science elite course is the India's only course which is backed by 5 leading companies like Swiggy, Profolix, New Retail, Forceer, and IntelliMark. If you are aiming to launch your career, change your field, upgrade your role, or return to work after a career break, then this program is for you. It is designed to help you break into fast growing fields like data analyst, data engineering, ML engineering, and many more roles. Course includes instructor led classes, project based learnings, industry interactions, and doubt clearing sessions. But what really sets it apart is the focus on the outcomes. It is not about just learning, it is about making you job ready. Odin School is partnered with over 600 companies, and they have even their own dedicated job portal to help you land the right opportunity. You will also get benefited from hiring sprints. These are fast track interview drives with the top companies, plus complete support with resume building, LinkedIn optimization, and interview preparation. Additionally, you will get mentorship from the industry leader and speakers. So the next batch is starting on the July 26th, and they are running with early bird discount and flexible EMI options. If you are interested, I will attach the course link in the description section and also in the pinned comment. So do check it out.
This com- so yeah, let's get started. Hey, hi, hi Darshan. So brief me about yourself.
Sure, Sahil. So I have an overall experience of 6 years in the IT industry. I've been working in the data warehousing domain as a data engineer and as an ETL developer. So my primary skill sets would include AWS, Informatica, Snowflake, and Alteryx. So I've got an exposure to multiple projects ranging from insurance and the banking domains.
Okay, so yeah, so can you just talk me about the recent project which you are working on or which you have delivered?
Sure. So I would like to share my experience on the AWS data migration project that I had worked on as an ETL developer. So this was for a Philippines-based banking client
Mhm.
where we had to migrate end-to-end data from on-prem systems to the AWS Redshift. So AWS was the cloud that was decided,
Mhm.
to be used here.
Okay.
So yes.
Okay, so what was like? Can you talk about the source systems and like you have said, it's an on-prem, right? So what were the source and what type of data it had, and then on the cloud, what you said you put into Redshift, and what was the process you have used? Like, what are the tech stacks you have used in Bit? Like, did you use any uh, Python scripts or shell scripts? What did you do for doing data migration?
Sure. So, as part of this project, we had to create around 750 source tables and around 70 target tables. And all the sources here were in the format of CSV files,
Mhm.
and they were all comma separated or pipe delimited. These were the kinds of source files that we used to get. And based on the different source files, we had to create the source tables in AWS Redshift
Mhm.
based on the source dictionaries that were provided by the different business analysts and the solution architects.
Okay.
We had to create the structures and create the tables of all the source tables present.
Mhm.
Also, once the source tables were loaded, we used the AWS Glue for the ETL part over here to transform and load the data from the S3 source files to the AWS Redshift was the target here. S3 was the main storage layer where all the files were stored. And that was the first part of the ETL year where we had to create around 750 plus source tables based on the source files that we received.
Mhm.
The second part over here was to use the different source tables that we created again to perform some ETL operations on them based on the business logics and business requirements
Mhm.
that we used to get in the source to target document mapping documents. And we had to use the same to finally load the data into Redshift target tables. So ideally, this was to transform all the data from Citibank to UBB Bank, so which is nothing but United Bank of Philippines. So
Okay.
this was how it was achieved. Yep.
Okay. So you said like you have CSV files sitting in your source systems. You migrated them to S3. From there, you created Redshift tables on top of that, external tables which were reading the data from the S3 underlying data.
Correct. Yes. And the entire ETL was achieved using
Glue.
AWS Glue.
Glue.
Yes.
Okay. So, may I know the size of the files that you were dealing with for moving the data, and how did you handle like a big file which you have in your system?
Sure. AWS has the capability to store even large size files,
Mhm.
but there were some limitations based on the different data types that we had. So in development, it was only a processing of limited set of data, which had like around 10 or 20 dummy or sample records were created. So this was part of the dev unit testing. And gradually, the size of data kept on increasing in the QA, and the final was the production, where we had around millions of records were stored based on based on the different applications or the source tables here. So our role over here was limited to development and QA testing,
Mhm.
because as this was a banking sensitive project, we there was a secured ODC layer created in the Philippines. So all of us were working remotely here, and two of us had to lead the team from the Indian side, from the offshore, were moved to the on-site ODC to support the migration of data and production. Yeah.
Okay. So you have said like the data was like AWS was able to handle large data, but what are the various data types that you had to work on? Because in the CSV, they are comma separated or pipe delimited. And then
Right.
the target tables, what were the format in which you were trying to store the data? Whether it
Right.
was Parquet or what type of format did you store in S3, and how the tables, like how did you create the tables on top of that?
Amazon Redshift, as we know that it is a combination of SQL and PostgreSQL. So similar to how we create SQL statements to create a table, we used a
Mhm.
similar kind of formats to create the tables in AWS Redshift. So suppose if we have a string data type in the source, we can define it as varchar of that particular size
Yes.
for the particular column. So depending on the data types defined in the data dictionaries, we
Yeah.
had to take a call to choose between big int, integer, small int, or varchar. So those were the some of the common data types. And also we had the timestamp data type that was used for different columns as well. Yeah.
Okay, so how did you handle the timestamp columns? Like, did you typecast them, or how were the data? Like, sometimes timestamp columns are quite tricky, right? Sometimes
Right.
have a string, sometimes because of the space, time zone, and all those things. How did you handle that?
Correct, yes. To handle this, we use the cast functionality in the SQL queries.
Mm-hmm.
So again, within AWS Glue, we have the SQL transformation layer where we used to give our coding or logic present for every single column.
Okay.
And to achieve this, we used to give the cast operations for that particular column. So suppose we need to cast it from string to time zone, to
Mhm.
again within timestamp. If we want to cast it to a particular format, even that is possible.
Okay, okay.
Yeah.
And like, what was the type of like the event, whether ETL pipeline, whether it was a streaming or a batch or it was a hybrid? What was the type of ETL pipeline you have developed?
Okay. So coming to the type of pipeline, it was on demand basis. It was not even a schedule or a batch kind of processing here. because the it as we know that AWS is a very expensive kind of
Yes.
cloud platform. So to optimize the costs and everything, as and when the development was completed for that particular table, and as and when the developer wanted to test the particular ETL flow, we would only trigger it on demand and check and perform the unit testing based on it. So there was no scheduling performed here. Even in dev, QA, as well as production also, it was the same. Because in production, initially we had planned to schedule the jobs, but the problem over there was the source files that were coming in were at very odd timings, or there was no fixed timing on when the source file would come into the S3 buckets that we created.
Hmm.
So only after cross-checking it manually that all the files are present for that particular table, we would trigger the automatic job for that particular load. Yes.
So how do you make sure that all the files are present? Like, did you enable any notification kind of thing, which as soon as a file lands, you guys get notified, or what is the uh, alerting mechanism you have?
So again, to just give you a background, our my role over here was up to only the TCOE testing part.
Yeah.
But as far as I have discussed with my other teammates, there was a backend team that used to monitor if the source files are correctly
Okay.
populated to the S3 bucket. And once they give a go ahead, only then the development team or the production support team used to run the required ETL glue job for the same. Yep.
Okay.
So it
So
was a kind of a manual process for the same. Yeah.
okay. So the pipeline which you have designed, was it a ETL pipeline or a ELT pipeline?
It was an ETL pipeline because we had to first extract the data from different sources here and
Hmm.
transform the data into as per the different business logics, and
Hmm.
then finally load the data into the Amazon Redshift layer. So it was an ETL pipeline.
Okay. And what is the time duration that your pipeline takes to run?
Amazon is a very super quick kind of processing layer.
Mhm.
So it can process millions of records within some minutes, within few
Yeah.
minutes. So again, it depends on if if that unless and until there is some issue with the backend server or with the database connectivity, the load of AWS Glue jobs are very quick. So we had set the job timeout as 5 minutes in dev, 15 minutes in QA, and 30 minutes in production, depending on the size of data. But what we observed was the average time duration to process millions of records was around 15 to 17 minutes. Yep.
Okay. So it, okay. Now, like when you were transforming the data, like can you walk me through what were the various transformations that you have applied, like which you are aware of or which you have applied in this project?
Okay, so because we had around 750 plus source tables and we had around only 65 to 70 target tables,
Yeah.
each of these target tables were using different source tables. So
Hmm.
main was joining the tables between different sources,
Hmm.
applying of different filter conditions to restrict the data that is going to be accessed, because we do not want the job to be long running. So we have to refine our query in such a way that we are only restricting the data based on what the business logic is. And the main thing is again to handle some default values, null values. Those were some common transformations. And there were some case when statements used depending on the type of data that we want in source, because we are converting that source data to our target data. So we had a lot of case when statements here. We had police statements to check the null values and to populate some default values for the same,
Okay.
and something like concatenation of two strings to populate into a single one. We also use the MD5 functionality here to have a common unique identifier for that particular table if there was no surrogate key or primary key defined. Yeah.
Okay. Uh, okay. So what were the tech which you have used in the transforming? Did you use PySpark, Pandas? What was it?
No. So in AWS Glue, we have something called as the visual layer, where it is like a GUI kind of interface where we have a drag and drop feature of including the source target and the manual transformations can be added in the intermediary layer. So we had to define the properties of the source and target individually, and in between we always made sure to use a SQL query transformation so that end-to-end processing of data is done using the SQL query part. It has AWS Glue provides lots of manual transformations also. For example, adding individual joiner transformations, filter transformations. But to optimize the code, it is always better to use the SQL query and make sure the job is running fine.
Okay, so you have to use the GUI. Like there's also the option for writing as a notebooks as a script as well, right?
Correct. Yes. So with after the visual layer, whatever we are performing inside the visual layer gets automatically converted into,
Mm.
I'm not sure on what script. I think it is the Spark kind of script here.
Use context.
Yes. So if we are good in scripting, we can definitely, there is an option to edit the script, because in the backend, the AWS Glue job converts whatever we are doing into the script and it performs the ETL load here.
That is great.
But we had used the visualization part here.
Okay. So, yeah. So, can you walk me through what are some of the optimizations you have included in the project, just to make sure that your data is being processed properly, and how do you make sure that end data is in the required format or not?
Sure. So because this was a data migration project and we had to do the ETL jobs from the scratch, it was always important to check the source dictionaries and the source data that we were getting from the source teams. The source dictionary documents used to keep it used to keep getting updated. So for example, today I have started my development using version 1 of a particular source dictionary.
Mm.
After my development is completed, I can see that a new version has been uploaded for that table.
Yes.
So on checking that structure again, we could see a lot of discrepancies. So suppose we had started our development for 100 columns, and now we are able to see around 130, 140 columns.
Yes.
So we have to again reiterate back to recreating of the table again, and then adding new logics in the source to target load within AWS Glue. And so that was there. And also sometimes the source data files were either corrupted or it was not given correctly to us in the initial phases. So it was like a to and fro process to go back to the business team and ask them that we could see that in certain records, instead of having 100 columns we have around 120 columns. So
Yes.
we used to ask them if this is what is expected. If 120 is the latest count, can you please update the source dictionary so that we can update the ETL glue job and process this particular file? Else, if that file was an issue here, then please reshare the updated file for our processing purpose. Yep.
Yeah.
So that those were some kinds of optimizations here.
Okay. So, but as you have said, right, like you have used a lot of joins because there are some 100 odd source tables that you have converted into 70 target tables. So
Correct.
definitely you have done a lot of joins. So, and in the joins, what are the various types of joins that you have used? And how do you make sure that like the join which you are using is not like sometimes when you do a join, right, the data might get exploded. Like instead of getting 100, if you do a 100 cross 100, it might lead to 10,000, right? So
Correct.
how are you handling that type of scenarios? Like how do you optimize your joins?
Sure. So one of the main features here was we used to have a combination of inner joins and the left outer joins here,
Mhm.
depending on again the business logics. And it was always good to have multiple join conditions within the joins of two tables here. So that will restrict the data and load the data, access that particular data in a quicker way. And also adding of different filter conditions in the where clause or after that join conditions will also be helpful to restrict the data to only the subset that we are actually interested in. So those were some kinds of operations that we used to do.
Okay. And also, since you were working on some very critical data, right? It's a banking data is very personal and it cannot be open source. So
Correct.
what are some of the testing validation framework which you have developed or worked on to test the data between the source and the target?
Sure. So the validation part was again done by the QA team or the TCOE team, and they also did not have access to production data. There were source systems for which they had created sample data or dummy data. So, for example, in the for our development unit testing, we had around 20 records, but for the QA testing, they would create around 500 or 1000 records based on the different data types. So, as we know, this is again a sensitive project. So, having access to production data without working in a secured ODC is not a way to go about this. So, all of this. So, the main thing over here is to test the data could be anything. The main thing is to test if our ETL glue is able to accommodate the structure of the data correctly. Because data can be either 10 records or millions of records. At the end of the day, we are only concerned about if we have manipulated the structures of the ETL glue jobs correctly. Because in the back end, only that is important here. So if any of our job fails because of the structure, we need to make sure that those are corrected here. Yeah.
Okay, so like as part of unit testing, like for example, you have written your glue code, right?
Yeah.
Which picks the data from the source, transform, and loads.
Right.
What are the initial checks which you have done? Like, what is, say for it could be anything like a null pointer check, or what are the various checks like validation things you have done to make
Yeah.
sure your data is rightly stored in the target tables?
Yep. Okay. So again, this is to check if for example, it is always good to see if the data is correctly given in our raw files that we receive. Because sometimes the data, we need to perform some data cleansing. When I say data cleansing here, there are chances that there could be some extra spaces for each value given in the sample file that we receive. So there were not many major transformations done to load data from S3 file to the initial source tables. We had to just perform the trim functionalities here to make sure that the leading spaces are removed over here and the data is coming in a very cleansed format here. So that was one of it. And another challenge was, for example, we are loading a timestamp column from the source, and the timestamp value is up to microseconds or nanoseconds.
Yes.
But within AWS Redshift, the default it does not, hold values
Time
up
zone.
to, yeah, the timestamp values are not uh, stored until microseconds or nanoseconds. So it holds only up to 2 decimal points, is what I remember. So the that is how it is. So those kinds of things had to be, we had to check in the back end. Okay, this is how AWS Redshift works. So this is what is expected. It should not be like, okay, what is there in the source will come in the target as it is. But definitely all the string values, integer values should be populated correctly from the source. Yeah.
Okay, and how did you handle your data duplicacy? Like when you have done a lot of joins, right? So there are chances that your my data get duplicated. And how do you handle that?
Data duplication. Okay. I think it was on checking on the different join conditions with the business owners, confirming with them. Like we used to query on the tables to see if there are duplications of data. That was one thing. Like, we have a particular audit layer we implemented an audit layer to perform some checks on the data that was loaded. So, for example, we used to check if there were duplications. So we have that having a count of that particular ID greater than one. So that was one kind of way to check if there are duplicate records that are loaded to the target table. So in case of such duplications, we have to go back to the join conditions and check if we are missing out on something or if it can be handled in a better way. Yep. So
Yeah,
audit
there might be
implementation.
chances, right? Like the data coming from the source itself has duplicate records.
Okay.
So even if you check the join conditions, they might not uh, solve your problem of data duplicacy, because if the source has, if in the join condition, if you're duplicating, then yes, you can control the joins. But if the data itself is coming in the source is having duplicate, so that in such scenario, how would you do that?
Okay, coming to this project in particular, we used to have primary keys for all the tables here.
Yes.
So even if there were, we used to set the primary keys for every single table based on the ID columns that were present. And once we ran the glue job, suppose if the load itself fails, the glue job itself fails because of, because of the constraint integrity failure here, that
Mm,
there are some duplicate records that you are trying to insert. If that is the kind of error, then we have to reach out to the source team to make sure that the correct source file is only loaded here. So yes, we did face such scenarios, and we had to set up integrity constraints to make to not have any duplications in data.
Okay. And what are some of the errors you have faced while implementing the pipeline or reading, writing, whatever it is? So can you walk me through some of the errors you have faced and how did you try to fix errors?
Sure. So, one of the main errors that I remember, so AWS Glue is not very good in showing the
No.
exact error.
Mm,
So it gives a very generic kind of statement here. So one of the ones was some write dynamic frame
yeah.
error in writing dynamic frame. That was a very common error.
Mm,
So because all of us were new to AWS, we all of us used to think that it has to do something with the backend server, or some connectivity issue inside AWS, temporary issue,
mm,
because not everyone used to get that error. But while we looked closely into our code base, we understood that we had to perform some casting operations for certain columns, because there was some chances that the source data type that is defined is different than what we are receiving in the source file. And
mm,
because every table had around 100 plus columns, it was important. It was not it was not feasible for us to manually check for each of those. But as and when we received different sample data sets, we could come to a conclusion that there is a possibility that we have to perform the casting functionality here. So after implementing the different casting from one data type to the other, we could see that the job is running successfully again.
Any other error which you have encountered, like other than this error?
No, everything else was running smoothly here. Yeah.
Okay, okay. Okay, if given a chance, like how would you rewrite the current application? Like, what are the best things you would implement right now if given the project to redo it? What are some of the strategies you would like to apply and just walk me through? Like, what you're thinking? This could have done be better, or something else could have been done here. So, what are some of the steps which you're thinking?
Okay, I think one of the main part was to have a very finalized kind of structures from the beginning of the project.
Mm,
I think there was a lot of delay in building the structures of tables and maintaining the ETL pipelines.
yeah.
So having multiple versions of source dictionaries is not something that should be encouraged in any project. There has to be the at least because it is a initial analysis phase or requirements gathering phase. I think those documentation should always be like a fixed or locked in kind of documents where we do not have major version changes. Even if there are version changes, I would always prefer that, okay, not many columns are impacted here. But we could see, like, suppose we are working on 100 columns, tomorrow another 70 columns are added. So it used to cause a lot of delay in delivering the ETL pipelines. So, or build the ETL pipelines itself used to take a lot of time because of the to and fro kind of activities that were going on. So that was one thing that because I would always prefer that the documentations and everything are up to date and they are logged in before the development even starts. Yep, because they were always part of the project from the beginning. So yep, that was one thing that I felt it was a kind of a bottleneck in our project. And second is the usage of copy command that we realized later in AWS Redshift. So instead of having the ETL glue jobs that we created for every single table, we
Mm,
have a copy command that we can use within. We can create a stored procedure based on that, and AWS Redshift has this copy command feature where the end-to-end data from the S3 bucket can directly be loaded into the final target table. So that is one of the main advanced features in AWS Redshift that we kind of figured out very later in the development stages. So we could have used that approach as well. But just because we started our development with ETL Glue, all of us, continued using the same approach. Yeah.
Okay, so now that I see one of the pain points which you had was majorly around schema, where one day they might be 70 columns, other day they say 100 columns, and third day they come with another 60 columns. So what could be the better approach over here in order to handle this dynamically changing schemas, or how would you handle this?
Okay. Again, because this is a very banking sensitive project, right? There were chances that even the business analysts or the solution architects did not receive the right source files from the source teams.
Yes.
So there was always a delay in getting the source files from the source systems here. So having locked in files also, I'm not sure if who used to create those files, but if the files were delivered correctly to them, then definitely they would have got a better way to structure the source dictionary or
No, that's the nature of any data, right? It keeps evolving. So today there might be some 10 fields, tomorrow 20.
yeah.
So don't you think there could be there cannot be always a one permanent solution to the data? So have you heard about the concept of schema evolution or something like that?
I'm not very sure about this.
Okay, so yeah, because this would help you to handle the dynamically changing schema so that you don't have to define everything. Yes, everything would not be defined in the very first state. That is an obvious thing. So you start with 10 columns, you tell, say tomorrow you have got 12 columns. So those two extra columns should be residing in a it would create an extra column where all the data is getting stored in the same. So yeah, schema evolution would be one thing which could help you to solve this problem instead of going back and forth.
Okay,
Okay.
okay.
And
Thanks for sharing on that. Yes.
yes, and what are the some of the security things which you had, right? Because it's a banking and you were working in a closed environment. Any security access or reasons you see while implementing this project?
Yes, definitely. So I think within AWS, we always have a backend team managing the IAM roles. So
Hmm.
that is the identity and access management roles for every single individual
Yeah.
involved in that project. So if I'm a developer here, the backend admin team knows that I'm being onboarded as an developer. So I
Mhm.
should be able to have super privileges in the dev environment and read only permissions in QA and production. Even download option or copying of files from one repository to the other, those kinds of options should be disabled for a developer. But inside the dev, I should be able to have all the accesses right from creation of S3 files, uploading files, uh, creation of glue jobs, and creation of tables, altering tables, dropping the tables, deleting the tables,
Mhm.
because that is where that is where every developer will own that particular ETL job that he or she is going to create. But within QA and prod, because we are going to have sensitive data coming in, there was again something called as the SIT testing, which had like 5 rounds of sample prod data coming in. So definitely no developer should be able to access that data. Yes, so these kinds of things were managed using the IAM roles for every single individual. So that was a good thing. Yep.
Okay, so and also, were there any versioning control in this project which you worked on, or everything was ad hoc? Like you directly write into a glue job and push your code. So tomorrow, if you any changes, you don't remember the what has done in the last, right? Because
Correct.
glue doesn't hold history. So
Correct. Correct.
so
Yes.
any versioning control you have in place?
No, not exactly.
Okay, because glue, as I said, like it doesn't hold history, right? If you update something and save, you are boom, you have lost the last version.
Right. Right. Yes.
Okay. So yeah, that's all I had for you. Any questions you have for me?
Uh, yes, I'll. So coming to the implementation of the ETL jobs, what other way do you think that we could have achieved this?
Yeah.
Is
So
there any other better cloud platform or something that you think they could have used, or is AWS still a leading, cloud platform provider?
okay. See, there is no straight answer for this. Every cloud provider has their own benefits. So Azure, like in an enterprise level, Azure is the most used. Then comes GCP, and then comes AWS. Yeah, initially AWS was the most preferred partner, but right now Azure is leading the market, and by the enterprise accounts. Now, if I come to your point, where what would have been like, how would I implement your ETL pipeline? I would, if you want to stick to AWS, yes, Glue, but in Glue, I would start with the UI chart, where the drag and drop options, and then I would like to implement the scripting part, where I have the control of what are the casting I have to do. I don't have to wait for the pipeline to finish. As you have said, it takes 15 to 17 minutes for your pipeline to finish. If you have a control, whether you could apply some caching technique, or if you could apply some sort of optimization techniques like inner join, broadcast join, all those things are there. So that way you have a better control on your data, as well as you know what type of data you're dealing with, and you could have better prepared yourself to handle that scenarios. Instead of waiting for the pipeline to fail, if I handle this scenario won't come. And the one which you have mentioned, where right dynamic frame is failing, is one. Definitely there might be some problem with your, what do you say, data that is coming, because the source is having defined some schema. For example, the timestamp column. Okay, now, when you have done via the SQL and everything, you might not have converted your column, string column, to timestamp column before saving it. So you have left as it is. So, but in the Redshift table, you have defined this column A as timestamp, but you're sending as a string column. That would cause an issue, and that is where the write would fail. It would say incompatible data type, something like that. That is one. But and second, where mostly it happens is because the data, you sometimes writes take a lot of time. Okay, because it does, like as I've said, like the glue underlying its script, right, that uses glue context. Glue context is similar to the dynamic frame, which uses a spark underneath. So spark and glue context, a combination, is responsible for all the UI you see on the board gets converted into glue context, and then PySpark, and that executes your code. So by this, you know that Spark is a lazy evaluator. So until and unless an action is triggered, you won't be able to see the output. So when you trigger a write operation, it starts from the very beginning until the last action has been triggered. So that way you would be able to control what are the things you have to do, what are the aggregations you have to do, at what point of time you have to cache your data, delete your data, or handle such scenarios. So that way you can control your data in a better way. Other than that, I think everything is okay to get started. And top of this, you could apply some of the enhancement which I have just spoken. So source is good. Then you have got Glue for transforming your data, which is an ETL pipeline, and loading Redshift. Yes, it has its own format of optimizing and everything. And if S3, so you can store in if majority of reads is there, then you can go for a Parquet format. If writes are there, writes are then go for the Parquet. If there are reads, then go for a WARC and something like that. So this
Okay.
is the some of the techniques here and there, bits and tricks you could do in order to optimize your whole process. So yeah, this way you could maybe make your pipeline a bit more robust and fall proof.
Okay. Sure, sir. Yes, this would certainly be helpful for future migration projects. Yeah,
Yes.
I'll keep this in mind. Yeah, thanks for sharing.
Okay. Okay, yeah, so I am done. I'll be sharing you one more Zoom link,
Okay.
where in that I'll be talking about your feedback. So
Okay.
I'll send you on WhatsApp. Okay. Yeah.
Sure. Okay.
Right.
Thank you so much. Bye.
Yeah. So Darshan, like, let's talk about your feedback on the overall interview. Overall, the interview was good. I could see you have worked on some of the AWS products itself. It was not much on the other tech stack, but yeah, you have worked majorly on the AWS. When I was asking the more about your projects, right, I was expecting a bit more deep understanding about what you have done. I know you hold around 6 years of experience, but still you need to answer like a 6 year experience old guy who is knowing in and out, and also some of the optimizations which you have brought into the project. It's not that you
Okay.
are only responsible for a development part. The testing is taken care by someone else. The QA is taken by someone else. Prod is taken by someone else. Okay. So until and unless you give your inputs into that deep level of what do you say, until unless you give deep understanding of the project, right, you won't be able to bring anything new into the project. So if I talk about optimization, if you don't know where are the bottlenecks, sometimes the bottlenecks are not on the development part, they come at the testing part or when the data is live with the customers, right? So that part, if you're not taking part in that end part where testing is happening or the data is being used by the consumer, you won't be able to understand what are the things I can do at the development end itself so that the end goal or the end customer is happy with the output he's getting. So that is one part where I see you could improve yourself. And then
Okay.
more the interview more sounded like more on the technical. I tried to keep it technical, but I could sense that you are giving some sort of a textbook definitions, right? Amazon has this, Amazon has that, but in an interview they don't care, because today you might be working with AWS, tomorrow you might be working for Azure, and then Databricks or someone else, right? So you need to understand what each and every product gives. There might be something, Amazon is very good, but Azure does something better than this. So you need to be open to explore those things, that maybe not at the project level, but you need to have an idea on, okay, this can be done in this by this. Sometimes the use case which you're telling, right? I don't think you even require AWS glue for that. You could write a Python script, just write a Python script and run it in your terminal. This would move
Okay.
source to S3. You don't even have to spend money on running your glue jobs. Everything could be done. Error handling, everything can be done. So you're saving money on the glue. So these are some of the things which you could have, which you could have thought and also implemented in your project, so that your project and overall grip on the project improves. So overall,
Okay.
it went well. I was looking for answers and I was getting here and there, but not up to the things which I was expecting. So
Okay.
yeah, maybe yes, if you focus on some of these things, then I might think that you would be able to crack your next interview. So all the best for your future ahead. And if for any questions, you can reach out to me. And yeah, any last thoughts you have for me, or anything you want to give?
Sure, Sahil. Thanks for taking out your time and conducting this interview and giving a very genuine feedback. This would definitely help me to look at all the out of box kind of questions and not only focus only on the type of things that we have achieved in the project,
Right,
but always it is good to have the optimization techniques and how we can do the same process in a different way to improve the efficiency of the project and everything. Yes, definitely. This would definitely help me to take
right.
it forward. Yeah.
Yeah, so we are in data world, right? So every day data is growing. So yes, you have learned here, but tomorrow when you switch your job or career, you won't be able to, you won't be restricted to such amount of data, that you might be dealing with some new challenges. So for that, you need to prepare yourself to understand, okay, if this comes, how I will be able to handle. So all those things will help you.
Okay.
Overall, yeah, it was a good time talking to you, and I got to learn new things from you as well. So thanks. Have a nice day, and reach out.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah.
You too. Have a great day. Thank you. Bye.
Okay.